Greetings and welcome to the Animal Wellness Podcast, the official podcast of Animal Wellness Action. Hi, I'm your host, Joseph Grove. On this show, we talk about animals from the perspective of people who care about them and have the ability to improve their lives by influencing culture and supporting laws and regulations accordingly. To stay up to date with all of our news and information, subscribe to this podcast, receive our free newsletters, and more, visit animalwellnessaction.org. Well, I'm super excited about this show. We've got a great guest, someone who is, I think, a leading advocate. It is not undue to say of him. He is with us. Donnie Moss will say more in a minute, but Wayne Pacelli also joins us. He is the president and founder of Animal Wellness Action. So Donnie Moss is a New York City-based animal rights advocate who runs local campaigns and produces videos for theirturn.net. In 2008, Moss made the award-winning film Blinders, which documents New York City's controversial horse-drawn carriage trade. From 2009 to 2013, he led a successful campaign to end the political career of an elected official running for mayor who had blocked animal protection legislation for 8 years. In May of 2015, he launched a grassroots campaign to compel the New York Blood Center to pay for the care of 66 chimpanzees who the organization had abandoned with no food or water on islands in Liberia. That campaign ended in May 2017 when the organization made a $6 million contribution to pay for the lifelong care of those chimps. So Donnie, great to have you with us. I've heard Wayne talk about you. Our former colleague, Natasha Dolezal, talked about you with adulation quite often, so it's a special treat to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, no, great. And I want to ask you this too, to kind of get us off, because you are the founder of theirturn.net. And the tagline you have there is that animal rights, animal welfare is the social justice movement of our time. You talk about, progress with women rights, African Americans, members of the gay and lesbian community having achieved major successes. And you say that now it is the time for animals to have those successes. Do you still feel that way? Is this still the social justice movement of our time?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a social justice movement of our time, more and more so because more people are waking up to the abuses that take place inside of factory farms and slaughterhouses and laboratories behind the circus tent. And so social media and to a lesser extent, mainstream media have exposed the public to the truth about what we do to animals. And the movement is growing bigger and bigger as a result. I think the phrase "their turn" came from me as a grassroots activist, just constantly being bombarded with this objection from people in the streets who would say, well, what about children? And what about people who are starving here? And what about people with this disease? Well, what about the animals? I always say compassion isn't finite. We can care about everybody who needs advocates in their corner.
And that's a good segue into our discussion about our recent work together on kangaroos. Specifically, we called our campaign "Kangaroos Are Not Shoes." It involved applying a great deal of pressure to Nike, probably the best known brand, inarguably the best known brand, that was using kangaroos to make soccer cleats. You did a lot of work. We received the fruit of some of that labor. I'd like you and Wayne, please, to talk about how we persuaded companies like Nike. Puma's followed suit. Diadora, we're now working on Adidas and New Balance. How did we make that change, Donnie? And Wayne, tell us your reaction as well.
Well, I mean, I could start by saying that, the activism that took place in New York City was just a very small sliver of a very big pie of a campaign. So the Center for Humane Economy launched this sort of global Kangaroos Are Not Shoes campaign and had so many important components to it: lobbying, a beautifully produced video. And so the protests were just, one piece of the pie, one spoke in the wheel, as they say. And so when I was contacted by, I don't remember if it was Wayne or Natasha, to sort of represent the Center for a Humane Economy in New York City, I mean, it was humbling because I know how important a campaign this was and will continue to be. And I felt like I really wanted to live up to the expectations of the Center for a Humane Economy, and more importantly, to the kangaroos who so desperately need us to win this battle for them. And so, I'd like to think that, this in-store disruptions that we did in New York City, the education, the outreach we did on the streets, played a role. And I think it must have played a role in New York City, and it must have played a role in other cities in Australia and the United States. There were activists all over the place who participated in this campaign. And I think, one city sees another city doing it, and then they want to get involved, and they see the impact, and they see the reaction of people on the streets, and they see activists walking into stores and disrupting, and they want to be a part of that themselves. They want to step out of their comfort zone and do something more for the animals than maybe what they think that they could do.
They hunt these kangaroos down in the dark of night, and they blow their heads off. We are pleading with Nike to stop massacring kangaroos. They're going to pay attention to us here. 2 million kangaroos are killed each year. Massacres we don't condone.
Leave the kangaroos alone.
Kangaroos are not shoes.
Just stop the slaughter.
Some of the kangaroos who they kill have babies, the jellies in their pouches. Those babies die! Kangaroos are not fashion!
Where the hell is your compassion?
Let's protest downstairs.
We will not give up this fight! Nobody here wants to pay for kangaroos to be slaughtered to make soccer shoes. I do agree about the soccer shoes.
For Nike's victims and their play!
We will not give up this fight!
I've been to Australia a couple of times, and they're beautiful animals, especially after all the fires and stuff they've had. That just seems insane. It seems like there's something else that they could use.
I think that slaughtering kangaroos for shoes makes no, it's wrong.
We'll be back! We'll be back! We'll be back! We'll be back!
I do want to connect the Center to Animal Wellness Action. The Center for a Humane Economy, of which Wayne is also president, is Wayne, parallel organization, sister organization that focuses more on consumer activism, while Animal Wellness Action, the sponsor of this podcast, focuses perhaps more on legislation. Wayne, I'll turn it to you for your perspective on that campaign.
Yes, well, listen, it's just great to have Donnie on. He's one of my heroes in the animal protection movement, for sure. Not just because he's a great guy, but because he's unbelievably effective. And I can count some of the best advocates in the country on my hand, one of my hands, and he's on it. So I'm so glad that he's joined us today. The Kangaroos Are Not Shoes campaign was one that the Center for Humane Economy advanced. And Joseph, you're correct that the Center for Humane Economy focuses more on changing the way business operates, where Animal Wellness Action focuses more on the way government operates. Those are the two biggest levers of change, in my view, in doing animal activism, right? I mean, we love animal rescue. We do animal rescue. All of us who, adopt a dog in need, or a cat, or some other animal in need, and then organizations come to the aid of animals in crisis. Inevitably, those are all activities, while crucial and necessary, are addressing the symptoms of the problem. Our goal should be to prevent cruelty in the first place. And our goal is not just to address random acts of cruelty, but systemic exploitation of animals, whether that's, as Donnie noted, in the realms of factory farming, animal testing, wildlife management, fashion, sport, a number of other categories in this space. So I formulated with my colleagues just a few years ago, around 2019, 2020, the Kangaroos Are Not Shoes campaign. I had a big touch with this issue in working to defend an early 1970s statute in California that forbid the trade in any kangaroo parts in that state. The government of Australia and the Australia-based kangaroo killing industry made repeated efforts to suspend that law and to repeal it. They succeeded a number of times through the years. And there was a very good group called Viva that was also working to protect that law. So in any case, around 2016, we cemented the California prohibition on the trade in kangaroos. And my thought in 2019, 2020 was to globalize that, to extend the California ban to the United States and to the world through a combination of political and corporate campaigns. Most of the killing of kangaroos, and it's about 2 million a year, does fluctuate depending upon the commercial demand for the product. 2 million kangaroos a year, and that includes upwards of 500,000 joeys, the juveniles who are with their mothers. The mothers are lactating to feed their offspring. They're shot at night, the adults, and it's in the dark of night in the outback in Australia. You know, these shooters are taking aim from 100 meters or so. They can't distinguish between an adult male and a lactating female. So the lactating females are victims of the shooting, and then the joeys are the collateral damage. And any effort by Australia to describe this as humane or carefully done are immediately vitiated by the knowledge of the joeys being killed in such extraordinary numbers. 500,000 joeys just as collateral damage. They weren't even aiming at them. So this is the largest terrestrial mammalian slaughter in the world. It's done for commerce. And the primary commerce, getting back to the point of our Kangaroos Are Not Shoes campaign, is to use the skins for athletic shoes. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I saw what happened in the fires in Australia in 2020. That was a huge motivator for me, with all of the anthropogenic threats that kangaroos face, plus the natural threats, the non-human threats. Why would we tolerate this mass intrusion into that native habitats of kangaroos to kill them for their skins, to make athletic shoes that these companies already manufacture with other fabrics for many of the models of the shoes? It's absolutely not necessary. And I've always thought that the very definition of cruelty was abuse for no good purpose. And this is no good purpose when you have alternative shoes. So we launched the Kangaroos Are Not Shoes campaign. I think the naming of a campaign is very important. I'm sure Donnie would agree that that speaks to you, right? It's got a little bit of an alliterative note to it, and it's memorable. And that was the launch of our campaign. And it's had many facets. And Donnie's activism in New York, I think, he's very modest, but it was really instrumental.
Thank you, Wayne. If folks want to learn more about this and see some of this material, it is kangaroosarenot.shoes.org. You can also go to animalwellnessaction.org and find our campaign page there. We've pivoted our activism now to Adidas, so you can sign a petition on that website to begin applying the same kind of pressure to the remaining two major holdouts on this front, Adidas and New Balance. So thank you for that. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say all of this takes time, energy, and yes, you guessed it, it takes money. And we certainly do appreciate your donations. It's super easy on our website to become a monthly sustainer. Those things help. We run a lean, mean machine here. Your dollars go very much straight to helping animals. So anything you can do to help us there, we appreciate it. And certainly, if nothing else, sign the petition and get on our mailing list so you can stay abreast of all of this material. Donnie, Wayne has mentioned the protests I just talked about, signing the petition. There are legislative fronts. What's the most powerful tool, right? If you had to pick one tool to persuade a company to make a change in its policy, what would it be?
It's a tool that it's such a powerful tool that we never even had to apply it. Just the mere thought that this was going to happen, I think perhaps contributed to the timing of Nike's announcements. And this is not something that the Center for Humane Economy was behind, but we as grassroots activists in New York City made the decision that we were going to escalate this campaign by protesting at the home of one of Nike's board members, who is the head of the Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability Committee on Nike's board. And I sent this individual several polite letters and didn't hear back, and I didn't expect to hear back. They often don't, in the absence of a consequence. And ultimately, I made it clear that we were going to show up at her front door in Manhattan at her apartment building with posters of her face juxtaposed next to pictures of what happens to the kangaroos. And her neighbors were going to know what she's responsible for, in part, and people in the community. This was right near NYU. And so 2 days before that first home demonstration, we got word that Nike was going to discontinue the use of kangaroo skin as material to make soccer shoes. And so, look, this announcement was probably already in the works, but it's quite possible that the timing, they pushed up the timing in order to prevent this protest. I just want to take a step back, though, and just address two other things that we were discussing. The first is the quality of materials that the Center for Humane Economy sent an animal wellness action for the protest that we did at the Nike stores was really good. I mean, there were really high quality materials. And I think that people who took these materials and people who stopped to speak to us in the street could see that this wasn't just a bunch of ragtag activists with nothing better to do. This was a really thoughtful campaign with thoughtful message points. And that, I think that really made a difference. The second thing I would say is that one of the tools we haven't discussed yet is social media. And after Nike made its announcement, I uploaded a video of one of the protests that took place inside of a Nike store to my TikTok page. And it's a fairly new TikTok page. I don't even have that many followers. Wasn't expecting much to happen with it. And it was sort of a warning to Adidas. This Nike made the right choice to stop using kangaroo skin, to stop hunting down kangaroos in the dark of night and shooting them in the head and killing their joeys. And Adidas needs to stop too. And if they don't, here's a consequence, again, with a video of an in-store disruption. Well, Wayne, I didn't tell you this, but that video, last time I checked, had 2.8 million views.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot tell you thousands upon thousands of comments from people saying, I had no idea. And that really speaks to the power of social media. If we could figure out these algorithms and why things go viral, and these are highly guarded secrets, we could really reach far more people than we are with all of our campaigns.
Well, I think that really activism there's no formula for it, right? It's not chemistry, it's not mathematics, but one element is it's got to be multi-dimensional. And I think that the Center for Humane Economy's campaign that we were so glad to have Donnie and their Turn.net join us in this campaign. And really many of the most important things that we do are collaboration efforts. I'm working a lot now, and we're working a lot with Steve Hindy with Shark on cockfighting and trying to stop cockfighting all over the country. It's an enormously big enterprise, illegal, criminal enterprise, but it's big. And Steve has been incredible. He's on my list of top 5 advocates in the country as well. And we work with Carrie Teal and Christine Dorchak with Great UK USA and Greyhound Racing. And we work with Dotsie Bausch on Switch for Good to get soy milk options added in the National School Lunch Program to break the dairy industry monopoly on the school lunch program. We've got a lot of great partners, and those partnerships are part of the reason that these campaigns are successful. Our FDA Modernization Act campaign to eliminate an animal testing mandate that had been in place for 84 years for all new drug development, with drug development perhaps constituting 3/4 of all animal testing in the United States and probably in the world. This was a signature success for us with the Center for Humane Economy and Animal Wellness Action, and it was a broad-based effort. But as I said, there's often a major legislative component to bring pressure. On the Kangaroos Are Not Shoes campaign, we've introduced 6 bills in the states to stop the sale of kangaroo parts, to build on California, and to let Adidas and Nike and Puma and others know that if they want to sell their products in the United States, they're going to face a very bifurcated market. They're going to have distribution challenges, and they're going to be facing reputational risks at every turn. And thanks to Donnie's work, they were going to face the idea that people were going to come into the stores and tell their customers exactly what was behind the story of each shoe.
I want to amplify something you just said, Wayne, and then pivot to Donnie with a question. But it doesn't seem to be enough to tell people what not to do. It's terrific to offer a beneficial alternative. And you just described the case that was able to be made for the synthetic shoes. And I know that that approach was also very successful with your recent work to modernize the FDA, that we were able to say, not only stop testing on animals, but here's why you should, because new technology, apropos of your reference to modern times, makes it more effective to use organs on a chip or artificial intelligence. There are better ways, and if we can show those better ways, then I think the case is more easily made and the results more easily obtained.
Well, call me old-fashioned, but I believe in logic. I believe in reason. And when you also really celebrate the best of human creativity, I mean, we put men on the moon in the 1960s, right? I mean, that was an incredible feat. Look at what we've done with computing technology. Look at what we've done with creation of sonatas and poetry. I mean, the human dimension, our creativity is extraordinary. Can't we figure out a way to play soccer without killing 2 million kangaroos? Can't we figure out a way to, test drugs and figure out a way that doesn't victimize primates and beagles? Can't we figure out a way to entertain ourselves other than to watch birds or dogs kill each other in a pit? I mean, this is absurd. It's completely ridiculous. But reason and logic don't always prevail. I mean, I do think they're a necessary component of our work, but you have to bring pressure because, these big actors don't just change sometimes things change just because that's the way the world is moving, but it usually takes a catalyst. And that's, I think, where Donnie and I really think about, what are the mechanisms of change and how do we do this? And I really want advocates around the country to think about not just having strong beliefs, but having strong strategic action that allows society to then move toward broader adoption of those beliefs. Not enough to just feel strongly about something if you're an advocate. You've got to find a way to get change done.
Donnie, I loved your anecdote about the potential approach to the New York City board member, right? I love it. What would you say to people, though, who might consider a threat or promise to show up at someone's residence and join them or pin them to this cruelty as bullying?
Exercising our First Amendment right to protest on a public sidewalk in front of someone's home and chanting really pales in comparison to hunting down kangaroos in the dark of night, shooting them in the head and slamming their joeys against the side of a car. So, it's certainly not fun. And it's really an escalation tactic to show up at somebody's front door. You have to do a lot of things before you get to that point. But at the end of the day, these individuals, corporations are making decisions based on what's in their financial best interest. And sending the polite letter to get them to do the right thing, more often than not, doesn't move the needle. And so these tactics have proven to work. It's a pressure campaign. These types of tactics are used in a pressure campaign. There are other organizations like Direct Action Everywhere that uses a more they describe it as a love-based approach. This is not that. This is almost the opposite of that. But sometimes you have to apply pressure and really make everybody uncomfortable in order to affect change. And we saw that in New York City several years ago on the New York Blood Center CHIM campaign, where we were protesting not only at the homes of board members of the New York Blood Center, which had abandoned 66 chimpanzees in Liberia after experimenting on them for many, many years. But we protested not only at the homes of those board members, but at the homes of the corporations that were contributing money, supporting this organization. It really got unpleasant and ugly and uncomfortable. And I don't think the activists enjoyed it. The people who we were targeting didn't enjoy it. We were slammed in the neighborhoods where we were engaging in this outreach. But at the end of the day, it worked. And the New York Blood Center wrote a check for $6 million for the care of the chimpanzees who they had abandoned in Liberia. And I genuinely don't think that would have happened without these escalation tactics showing up at people's doors. And you know what, Joseph, it's a good point. You know, where do you draw the line? I don't draw the line there. I think it's okay. Other people would disagree, but we know it works.
Well, I think it's clear that, you know, one thing that Donnie has said here is that it's not the first response, right? It's not gratuitous. You give people a chance to do the right thing. This campaign, Kangaroos Are Not Shoes, has been running for 3 years. Nike was not very responsive. They talked to us initially, and then they just kind of walled themselves off. And this is a big company. It's a fabulous communicator. You know, the swoosh is one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Why couldn't they discuss things with us? And, you know, we didn't threaten them. You know, we didn't call for a boycott. We said, we want you to stop sourcing kangaroo skins. Look, 2 million kangaroos are killed every year, 500,000 joeys. Isn't that a moral problem? There's also a practical element of this. And my thesis has been for a long time that the shoemakers are innovators and are using other fabrics already with great success. And I asked Mitchell Fox, who was the original campaign manager for the Kangaroos Are Not Shoes campaign for the Center for a Humane Economy. I said, what can you do to validate this thesis? Then he said, let me count up the goals scored in the 2021 European Championships on soccer, football, and see what percentage of players are using non-kangaroo based shoes versus kangaroo shoes. And he counted them up, and it was overwhelming. Then the World Cup came around in 2022 after we published the European Championships data, and I said to his successor in our campaign, Natasha Dolezal, count up all the goals scored in the 2022 World Cup from the first match to the championship with Argentina and France. And she did. And there were 172 goals scored. 164 came off of the feet or the heads of players not wearing kangaroo-based shoes. 95% rate, the best players in the world, the best scorers in the world, not using these shoes. So I think that clinches the case. And of course, our recent successes come in the wake of that information being broadcast to the world. We do not need these shoes made from kangaroos. So, you know, the center, you know, didn't ask Donnie to do it. The center, you know, went to Donnie and said, can you help us? Can you protest, you know, in New York City? And Donnie then took the ball and ran with it. And it's certainly a permissible activity, protesting on a street. And as Donnie said, he considers it unpleasant, but it's unpleasant what happens to these animals as well. I've always used the polite methods. I mean, when I was younger as a college student, I did do a good bit of direct action for animals, but I realized that we needed to do more than that. Not leaving direct action aside, there's got to be a limit though, right? I mean, I for one have spoken out against illegal tactics. I think it hands a strategic opportunity to our opponents to cast us as extremists and to cast us as willing to violate the laws. Now, I understand the motivation of people who care passionately about animals and don't want to see these awful forms of exploitation persist. I understand the impatience. I understand the will to sacrifice. But I think the only pathway for us is to use permissible tactics. And that certainly includes hollering and yelling and some amount of confrontation, as well as the more established routes of legislative advocacy and letter writing and publishing of op-ed pieces and peer-reviewed science. all of those things matter, but I just can't think of too many examples where big change has occurred without some street level activism.
Donnie, I know a lot of people are listening to this and probably feeling what I'm feeling right now, and that is psyched up. Put me in, coach. What can people do to? Why are you laughing, Wayne?
No, you're right. You're
No,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
My
looking at
father
me
was a
saying,
football coach. My father's a football coach, so that he would inspire the players to get out there. So
Wayne
absolutely.
looks at me. Wayne looks at me and thinks that's a pickleball player at most. that's what he's thinking, Donnie. But what can people do to engage in more of your kind of advocacy?
Well, look, I'll tell my own personal story. So I saw videos of what takes place inside of factory farms and slaughterhouses. I saw these videos in 2005, and I made a decision right there that I was going to stop eating and wearing and consuming animals in any way. And then I realized I wanted to do more than that, because I had all of this anger running through my veins about what we do to all of these innocent sentient beings. And so I was living in London at the time, and I got online and found out where activists were engaging in protests and where people were campaigning to improve the lives of animals. And I went to Harrods, where activists were staging anti-fur protests. And then I moved back to the US, and I saw that there was a campaign on the streets of New York to end the use of horse-drawn carriages in Midtown Manhattan. And I participated in that. And then I thought, there's never been a documentary about that. I'm going to grab a video and, I'm a video camera and shoot some video and see if I can cobble something together. I had no experience, but I thought maybe I could do something that I could post up on YouTube. And, and then one thing led to another, and that ended up being a documentary film. And so the point is, you enter the movement. If you're not part of the movement, enter the movement in your local community and find your voice. I found mine through these pressure campaigns, through making videos, through educating the public. And, whereas Wayne has a much more global view and is running these much more sophisticated campaigns that include, legislative work and lobbying and, larger campaigns. And so, and that works for him. So, but regardless of where you find yourself in the movement, I would encourage people to step out of their comfort zone, because that's where change occurs. Change happens in the discomfort zone for us as activists. And when we push ourselves harder, more change happens for the animals more quickly.
Yeah, everyone has at least a voice. Is it fair to say you don't need to be 100% fluent in all of the issues to be 100% fluent in legislative processes? But if you have a voice, begin to use it. And I love what you said, Donnie, about you're just going out, and making a video, a movie. You'd never done it before, right? We can't wait until we are as good as we may become or would like to be in order to make a difference. No one can do everything, but everybody can do something. Wayne?
Well, and we know that things aren't going to change if we're standing on the sidelines, to continue with your put me in, coach sort of notion. I mean, these are big problems. And, just going back to the beginning, Donnie has an ambitious vision for changing the way society treats animals. I mean, we've viewed animals in a very subordinate way for a long time. And there are a lot of powerful institutions that use animals, and they marshal their political power to maintain the status quo. Just look at ag-gag laws or the food disparagement laws, or, so many aspects of counter maneuvers that exist in our field. And I think, I know that things cannot be achieved alone. I know Donnie knows that change can't be done alone, but it does start with the individual. But then the value of this is that we engage in collective action. We work together, which is why I love the idea that the Center for Humane Economy is working with Donnie and their turn. And I really enjoy, even though I haven't always seen eye to eye with Steve Hindy with Shark, but now we do see eye to eye. And I really appreciate him. I appreciated him before in terms of his work, but I appreciate it now that he is willing to collaborate and believes in collaboration. The same thing with Grade 2K and the other partners that we have. We've got to be together on a lot of these things. We have sometimes tactical differences. We may have ideological differences. I mean, I'm not one who believes in orthodoxy, right? I mean, I don't think that you have to be this, and this to be an animal advocate. I welcome people of diverse backgrounds. I welcome people of all political persuasions being involved. I mean, I think it's wrong for us as a movement to become, just a cause of the left. Everybody should be involved in animal advocacy, whether you're very conservative or very liberal or anywhere in between. Animal protection is a universal value. And, I just lost my beloved companion, Lily. She was a little beagle mix who was rescued. And there's a life there. You see their eyes and you see their fear when thunder rolls in. And you think, my God, this is a creature who has the same sensate feelings as I do or we do. I mean, we're just ignoring it, somehow excusing it or rationalizing it. We've got to do better. We can do better.
Wayne, I read one of your posts about Lily and the aspect that you could tell that she had a horrible life before you got her. That really, really touched me. And I just felt this enormous gratitude for you and all the other people who rescue dogs that have been abused and do bring them out. And that's a bit of a divergence from the topic, but you brought up Lily, and man, it was super moving. What a blessed dog she was to have you, Wayne. So I'm really glad she found you. So thank you, sir, for
thank
that.
you. I was blessed to have her. She made me a better person. That's for sure.
Excellent. I want to go back to Donnie. Donnie, any final thoughts? Anything we've not talked about on this episode?
Yeah, just a couple final thoughts, and that is we have so much to learn from animals like Lily and all other animals, because when you think about it, all of the other animals who live on this planet, except for humans, they live in harmony with the planet. They're born, they take just what they need to survive, and they leave the planet just the way they found it. Yet humans, and we have this idea that we're the most intelligent of all animals, we're destroying our only home and all of the other individuals who live here. We're destroying it for everybody. So we have to learn from the animals, learn from their kindness and their care for the planet and others. I'd also say that, Wayne, you were alluding to, bringing everybody into the movement from the right to the left. And I would add that we should bring people into the movement who aren't fully there yet. Gene Bauer, the founder of Farm Sanctuary, says we need to meet people where they are and bring them along. And I very much think that's true. If somebody wants to participate in an anti, kangaroo skin protest, but is still eating animals, well, we can meet them where they are, talk to them about it, and help them connect the dots. And lastly, I would say that, just remind everybody that all of the other animals are here with us, not for us. They exist for their own purposes, and we should just let them live in peace.
Listeners, if you want to take action, send an email to action@animalwellnessaction.org. We have, as part of our agenda at Animal Wellness Action and the Center, the growth of many state programs. Some states have state directors. We always appreciate people at the grassroots level to have them on hand for when something like a protest does come about. So if you'll email action@animalwellnessaction.org, we'll make sure that you're connected with the person who's in charge of our state affairs, so that you can be on standby at the ready, right? So we appreciate that. And we appreciate also your tuning into this podcast. We're grateful. Go to animalwellnessaction.org, centerforhumaneeconomy.org, and sign up for our newsletters. We have many forms that communicate directly to legislators. So if you want to take some action, all you have to do is fill in your information, and a letter is generated on your behalf. It comes from your email address. It's a great, simple way to begin your journey into the world of animal activism. And of course, again, none of this happens without financial support. So if you can sign up to be a monthly subscriber, donor at any level, that makes a big difference. So you can find this podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, or Spotify, all the social channels. We sure do want to thank Donnie Moss for being with us today. Wayne, thank you for joining us today after what I know was a brutal day yesterday. And until the next episode, I've been your host, Joseph Grove. Thank you.